Cy Amundson here with the Vikings Entertainment Network, getting you all ready for the 2020 NFL Draft. Joining me today is former linebacker, current color analyst for the Vikings, Pete Bercich, and we are talking defensive line. And what we're doing here, we might not necessarily be giving you the 5 best linemen that are going to come out of this draft. We kind of sifted through to find the 5 guys that we thought were a good fit with this organization that you, and with Mike Zimmer's defense, that you could talk about. Pete, so I want you to kick it off with a guy that I know you love a lot, Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina.
Yeah, Javon Kinlaw is a freak, and he's a Jadeveon Clowney type of physical freak. I mean, right now, at least his height weight at the combine about 6'5", 315. But when you see him on the hoof, he doesn't. You imagine in your head how big someone who's 315 pounds is going to look. This guy is proportioned, and he is one of the strongest players that I've seen at the point of attack. I mean, he has an interesting history. He was homeless. He grew up homeless, bounced around. Those kinds of guys have a tendency to not take things for granted. So. It's a very interesting, very, very interesting story. The only thing on him that you've heard on the negative side is just his motor. And by that, I mean, doesn't give it 100% on all the plays, and has a tendency to fall away. But because in the NFL, you have to give 100% effort on every single play. But if this guy puts this thing all together, he is so strong. And plays with leverage. Now, you'll hear the phrase maybe a little tight-hipped and that kind of thing. It's a catch-22 because that gives him the power that he has. Now, with the size and everything, he does remind me of Kevin Williams. Kevin Williams was a massive man. He was just huge. I think Kevin ran a little bit better than this guy, but with his size and talent, it's going to be hard to see him last, 15, 20 picks into this draft.
Well, and if you see a guy like that, like you said, drafts break out in a bunch of different ways, and we have those 2 picks right in the 20s there. If he does slip there, it's hard not to take a long look at a guy that size who's not like you've inferred sloppy in the way he's put together. He's just an absolute monster.
He is.
Let's move to Neville Gallimore, a guy, he came out of Oklahoma, but he is a native Canadian. Born in Ottawa, which you don't hear a lot in the NFL, but this guy, another really big dude who moves well.
Yeah, he's 6'2", 302 pounds, so another very, very big guy. He opened up a lot of eyes at the combine when at 6'2", 300 plus ran a 4.79 40. So he can run, and the beauty of it is he uses it. He's the best, I think, sideline to sideline type run defender that I've seen of all this group. The question is can he move to a 3 technique type position and play over a guard and be able to dominate over a guard? That'll remain to be seen. But with defensive linemen, work ethic means so much, and this kid has that. He's going to take coaching. I think he's going to want to get better, but an unbelievable talent. Again, could be, he's been a nose tackle mainly in college, may be able to play some 3 technique, great burst. Good speed. Chasing down running backs. And in the NFL now, with so much of the outside type runs, and this kid can absolutely run and keep up with that. So I think, this kid would be another one that you would love to have on your roster, regardless of how you get him. He'd be a huge, huge asset to this defensive line group.
He always reminds me, maybe not in terms of size, but he's also got that, Pat Williams also had that thing where all of a sudden you'd see him just mow all the way down the line to the sideline and make a great run-stopping tackle. So I really like that about this dude. Let's head into the Big Ten for a little bit. Let's go to Iowa with AJ Epenesa.
AJ Epenesa, he's intriguing in that, he had 25 and a half sacks in his career at Iowa. So you have to, and he played for 3 years in a row. So he was either, a redshirt sophomore or sophomore. And he's had multiple sacks every single year that he's, been in Iowa. A little, 6'6", 280. So he has the size and frame, and he's going to be even bigger, and he's going to continue to get bigger. A little disappointing. He ran a 5 flat or 5:04.40 at the combine, and when you watch him on film, he doesn't have that burst or doesn't have that speed on the outside. So he may be a guy that a team would look at moving inside. Anyone who's watched this kid play knows his demeanor, and this is why, as a scout, you got to meet with coaches, you got to meet with the secretaries at the football offices, and talk to the trainers and talk to the weight coaches, because he's very, very even keeled. And that's not that that's a bad thing, but I just never saw the guy show any emotion.
Absolutely. And, I hear what you're saying about demeanor, but I will point out a guy we've already talked about. Kevin Williams wasn't necessarily a bastion of shouting.
No, he wasn't. But he played the game. I remember sitting down at the combine and asking him, you get in those rooms, you have 10 guys in there, and the player sits in the chair, and and Scott Studwell asked him, so what do you do in your spare time? What do you like to do? And Kevin just kind of paused, and he goes, fishing. You know what I mean?
Let's go from Iowa to Penn State with a uniquely named giant, another big, tall defensive end, Yetur Gross-Matos.
Now you talk about not only just an interesting name, but a pretty amazing story. His father drowned when he was 2 years old. When Yetur fell in the water, his dad jumped in to save him, got him out, and then drowned right afterward. And then just a few years down the road, his older brother was 12 at the time, but he was struck by lightning while on a baseball field. So this young man has been through quite a bit. And for him to have gone through all these things and continue to play at a high level like at Penn State, it shows a lot of resiliency. And you love that about kids, about guys who make the choice to continue on and not look back, because those are a lot of reasons for him to have go astray, and he hasn't. Good player. You take a look at his numbers at 6'5", 264. So he's long. We like that here. I do think he's a very, very raw pass rusher, though, meaning his technique and those kinds of things, he has a lot of room. You look at a kid like this, you think of maybe a Danielle Hunter down the road, meaning that if you bring this kid in, it might take him a few years, to take him some time and some development. But good speed. You can't coach big. You can't coach a guy taller and bigger, really. And it's hard to coach speed. But you just watch him play. He's not the most instinctive player. I think so he's going to have to develop the football knowledge and the football acumen. But it's going to be hard to outrun him sideline to sideline.
Well, let's close the list down with maybe my favorite guy on the list that you sent to me. And speaking of a guy who's a little bit of raw but has a ton of upside, and a guy that could be available for us late in the first round, Terrell Lewis out of Alabama.
Yeah, you're right. He's a guy 6'5", 262. He moves and runs and looks like Danielle Hunter with the long legs. He's explosive on the pass rush. He can move, great speed, great burst, meaning, he can turn that speed on. He's another guy, though, who's raw. He only played, I think, 23 or 22 games in college. In his history, there's some check marks, some things that you'd want to verify. He missed a lot of, I think 2018 it was, with an ACL tear. So obviously the doctors and those things those guys are going to look at that knee and make sure it's not degenerative. He's very, very quick off the ball. And by that, I mean, when the ball snapped, he moves. That's something that's very hard to teach, and he has that. And in the NFL, you have to use that. We've seen Everson Griffin, jump off sides many times, but that's what defensive, it's kind of what they do. They're timing things. They're trying to get just a couple inches on that offensive tackle. But this kid looks the part. I think if he's around late in the first round, I think defensive line is the biggest priority. And again, I haven't seen all the other positions, but If physically he checks out and mentally, and you like him as a kid, he looks, runs, acts, rushes like the defensive ends that we've had here. So I think he'd be an unbelievably good fit for this team.
And I'll double down on it here, Pete. Anytime you have the versatility to drop into pass coverage like Lewis does, obviously that's a perfect fit for what we're doing here, and it speaks to the sort of athlete that you were describing. So we greatly appreciate you joining us for the defensive line breakdown, Pete. I know you're going to be back with another position. Remember, Viking fans, you can go to Viking.com and get all of the position-by-position breakdowns for the 2020 NFL Draft, and we will see you back here very soon.